All right, good morning on this Monday, August. Can you believe it, guys? It is August 19th. All right, first day of classes in Auburn in a lot of schools around the country.
And we got a special one in class today.
Yeah, absolutely, we do, man. Good luck, Oakley. You're going to earn that Auburn degree. And
good luck, Oak.
Having in life is
you the man. You the man.
Hey, you the man. You the man.
And whatever thing Rob said about life and all the good stuff.
Hard work works. It's in the old Auburn creed.
Number 2 pencil is what you need.
And a pocket protector. There we go. Hey, got a great show stacked up today. Jacob Goins, ESPN 106.7 on the line in Auburn, joins us in the leadoff position. Andy Humphrey, KTGR up in Columbia, Missouri, talking some Mizzou football. Had an injury to one of their key players. Ironically, he was a transfer from Georgia. And then Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia, checks in. And then Ben Troupe checks in from Savannah, the Grid City, on the Gators. A lot to talk about. Smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Get pen and paper handy. You're going to need to take a lot of notes. It's the Monday morning rush hour blitz on college football, SEC style. Let's go. Let's do it.
Rush hour style.
Rush hour.
Do it.
That's right. In Atlanta.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with Jacob Goins and ESPN 106.7 on the line in Auburn. Jacob, not much going on other than we are we're about 96 hours away from the start of college football season Thursday night, 120 hours away from the start on Saturday in Dublin, Georgia Tech and Florida State. You are blessed to be on the plains in Auburn. Practice is going along. They're kind of getting through the preseason camp, getting ready for the season to start. A lot of new freshmen coming in, transfer portal guys. Make sense out of all of that so that everybody in the free world with 2 ears can take notes and learn, because you know what you're talking about.
So you're muted.
You're muted. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. There it is. There we go. Act like I've used technology before, right? No, I appreciate you guys having me on. And there's just so much happening down here on the plains right now. All spring was just a ton of hype, right? Because you had a lot of the freshmen on campus, but not all of them. And then you went through summer workouts, and it was talking season. But in this day and age, there's really never nothing to talk about. There's always something going on, right? Then we had SEC Media Days in Dallas in July, and now we're here. Fall practices is basically wrapping up because the season starts next week. Game week is next week for the university. And so there's just been so many different storylines from the freshman wide receivers and transfer portal wide receivers and a quarterback, not necessarily quarterback battle, but questions on, is Peyton Thorne going to be better than he was a year ago, right? DJ Turkin running the defense. I mean, there's just been a lot happening here, but all good things. I really don't have anything negative to report. I mean, a couple of guys are banged up, but everybody's had that problem. And Auburn's on the lower end in terms of guys getting hurt for the season, which we've seen around the SEC already. So overall, good things are happening so far, and can't wait for the season to start.
Jacob, last year, Auburn signed 5 kids who somebody rated 5-star. You know, Cam Coleman out of Phoenix City, Perry Thompson out of Foley. You've got Amarius Mims out of North Carolina was a 5-star. Jamonte Waller out of Picayune, Mississippi was a 5-star. And you know, you look at these guys, and DeMarcus Riddick out of Clanton, Alabama was a 5-star until he decommitted from Georgia. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek saying this, but that's a pretty special group. who stood out among those freshmen, say, even from that elite crowd?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Coleman's obviously been the talk of everything since he committed to Auburn, and he has done exactly what we thought he was going to do since he got here. But the guy that's really stood out for us in terms of freshmen, and it is out of that receiver room, it's Malcolm Simmons. It's somebody who is extremely speedy, very quick, and I think you're going to see him in a lot of different ways on the offense this year. The couple of scrimmages that Auburn has had, he's been the guy that has been the standout. He's been the one that Freeze has talked about in person, and the one that we got to see not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Malcolm was the guy that got it done and was making plays, whether it was down the sideline, 50-50 balls, or just using him in speed situations. Malcolm is somebody that people are forgetting about, him and Bryce Cain, because look, Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, they get all the love, right? I mean, they're the bigger names and a little bit physical, bigger guys. But no, Malcolm Simmons has been the one for me that has really overshot himself. And not that he didn't have high expectations already, but he was overshadowed to begin with. But I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. I think Malcolm Simmons will be a huge part of this offense this year.
You know, he was one of the guys I was most excited about last year because of his track and field background, which I think is your insurance policy for every sport you play. He long jumped 27 and change. That's what I like about him. And Bryce Cain is fast as lightning. He's not that big, but you get the ball in his hands, he's gone. All right, on the defensive side, you lost some big guys like Marcus Harris. His brother, Malik Autry, is there out of Pike Road. Got to have depth on the defensive line. You want to be 2 and 3 deep on that front seven. Where does Auburn stand as of today?
I think they feel pretty good, and I think we're still learning a little bit about exactly who that's going to be. And luckily, right, Auburn has those first 3 games to kind of figure all of that out. Same thing on the offensive line, too, is, okay, we have an idea of who could be there, but I'm curious on who rotates in. Where do they play? Yeah. They even said they're still trying to figure out where to play some of these guys because they just need to know, okay, are they better at the tackle position, offensive line or defensive line? Are they better at the edge? Are they, just still trying to decide exactly where they want to put all these guys. But in terms of depth, I think they're going to be just fine. I think they've got some senior type leadership experienced guys and then a ton of young talent behind them. So I think depth is totally fine. On both sides of football, offensive and defensive line, it really does come down to, okay, by the time the Oklahoma game comes around, who will the starting five be on the offensive line?
Yeah, Jacob, your volume, can you work on your volume? I couldn't hear part of that. Okay.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. Your rotation, Amarius Mims is a big one. As Coach Dye would say, he's a big one. And Jamonte Waller, edge rusher type of guy. You think about a guy who's been in the program for a long time, Zykevious Walker. I mean, he's a 4th or 5th year player. Again, that's rare in these days. I would bet he is a veteran in terms of leadership. I think it's going to prove valuable to have him on that roster. I respect what he's done.
Yeah, I do too. And having those types of guys who have all praised DJ Durkin as their defensive coordinator, that's what I'm most excited about is how can DJ Durkin use those types of guys, the experienced guys and the young guys who are just animals and are going to be freaks in a few years, how can he use them to his advantage? And they've all just raved about him. And in the scrimmage we got to see a few weeks ago, they did not show the same defensive set twice in a row. They changed it up on every single play, and the offense just had no idea what to do, coming from different areas, moving different things, having different checks. Like it was really impressive to see, and it was a combination of those guys up front, of the deep linebacker room, and even some of the guys in the secondary where, sure, there's a couple of experienced guys, but Hugh Freeze has continued to say there's a lot of young puppies back there too.
All right, offensive line. Auburn went 4 or 5 years, just offensive line just was haunted. It was so bad. The offensive line room. It's gone from, a couple of guys, SEC caliber. The day Freeze took the job, You might have 14 or 15 now. Talk about the depth in that room, because it all starts up front, always has, always will.
And it's all going to start with Connor Lew at the center position. Yeah. That's what it's going to start with. We knew when he was being recruited and when he committed, people were telling us this guy's going to be playing on Sundays in a few years. He was that good, and you could see that he was going to be that good. And I think it starts with him. He's about the only one to me that is just 100% locked in right there in the middle. As I was saying a second ago, everybody else is sort of on rotation. It's trying to figure out, okay, do we want to put this group of guys on the field? Do we want to put this guy over here? Like, just in names like Too Tall Miller that people are, familiar with, and those types of guys. And what's been fascinating is a couple of names that we weren't really expecting to do a whole lot have gotten early praise from Hugh Freeze. Braden Joyner, the Auburn High School product that is on campus. Hugh Freeze has mentioned him in every press conference so far this offseason, just how he has impressed. And so look out for guys like that, Rob, that maybe we didn't understand or didn't think were going to be a part of it, but that feeds into the depth of what Auburn's doing on the offensive line. And you said it, we haven't had this in, a handful of years, and it's so refreshing to see.
All right, another storyline that's been developing this whole offseason is Alex McPherson out of Fort Payne. Perfect on field goals last year. His status just kind of day to day. Mr. Magoo, Towns Magoo, the kid from Auburn High School, really stood out in the spring. You hate that McPherson's out, and where's that going? What's happening there? But talk about the special teams, because they're a third of every game.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate with McPherson, because he's such a talented kid, and he's such a great kid too. And I don't think that it's going to be a career stopping thing. I don't think he's just completely done. I've heard he's getting better, starting to put on a little bit more weight. It's some sort of a stomach issue, and they haven't given us a ton. And you know what? That's not really our business. But
sure.
He just hasn't been healthy. And so Towns Magoo is somebody that I had a pleasure of seeing since I was here in Auburn a year ago, and he is unbelievable. I mean, the kid can hit 70-yarders when he wants to. And so and I'm not joking. Like, he's that good. It's unbelievable, right? And it's like you shouldn't be able to do that in high school football, but he could if he wanted. And so Auburn is going to be fine in the kicking game. Auburn's still good in the punting game. We've asked Hugh Freeze about like the return game and things like that in terms of kick returns and punt returns. Sounds like it's going to be a combination of Perry Thompson, which is exciting but kind of scary. Jarquez Hunter, same thing, exciting but a little scary. I think Keontae Scott will be on punt returns again this year, just a little bit, maybe not as much, but those types of guys. But Freeze has admitted that they still have work to do in that area, just from a ball security standpoint and blocking and communication standpoint. But you expect that still in August. But I think you're going to have a lot of talent back there. In terms of kicking, though, Auburn's going to be just fine.
What are you noticing to year one to year two in that quarterback room? I asked Peyton Thorne, you were there at Media Days in Dallas. You've got Walker White, Hank Browne, Holden Gariner. Got some guys that have been around. Robbie Ashford's not there. I'll just say I'm excited about that quarterback room, because they seem like a close-knit group. And you got Kent Austin. I've watched that guy in high school play for Brentwood Academy. Shred, maybe the best team MUS ever had in Memphis, 35-7, with a tight end named Jimmy Hockaday that went to Georgia. Kent went to Ole Miss. Having him on the field is like learning how to paint with Michelangelo as your teacher.
That's what I've heard is a lot of those things from the quarterbacks themselves. We've had media availabilities with those guys. And so, look, it's no secret at this point, Peyton Thorne is your starter. But what is exciting is what he can do in year two, what Hugh Freeze is talking about, how he's already improved in year two with communication, with just learning and reading defenses and being able to check out of plays. He's talked a lot about how he wants Peyton to realize before a play even happens, okay, I need to get out of this because it's not going to work based off of what I see. And Freeze has said that Peyton Thorne is doing that a lot better. In terms of the guys behind him, It is really exciting to see because the future could kind of go in multiple different directions. You could see it be a Hank Browne or Holden if that's what Auburn needs to do. Or it could be a Walker White, who I don't think is going to be anything this year just because he's so young, but the talent is there. And then in terms of recruiting, you just never know who's going to come in. And so we're going to find out, I believe, this week on who the true number 2 guy is. Humphrey says he wants to tell the quarterbacks before he tells us in the media. And it's pretty much split 50-50, man. It's either going to be Hank or Holden, but we really don't have a concrete answer yet. Everybody's kind of taking bets right now on who it's going to be.
Hey, look, man, we're going to let you go. This is your first time on the show. It damn sure won't be your last. You are definitely squared away. You know what you're doing. You're really good. Folks, follow this guy. He works his butt off. Hey, next time you talk to Peyton Thorne, I got a friend, Brock Kreitz from Naperville, played linebacker for Ole Miss.
Okay.
He gave me one of the great terms I've ever heard about a cold beer. How about a road soda, Bobby? That's and Brock is from Naperville. Ask Peyton if he knows what a road soda is. But
a road
follow
soda.
This guy. Thanks for being on here with us. Have a great day, okay?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Brenden, love these pros. Here's another one. Live from Columbia, Missouri, KTGR, Andy Humphrey. Andy, man, Missouri football. I think a lot of these boneheads out here just, Missouri, they ought to be in the Big Ten. They got a good program. I'm in Memphis. I'm watching it. I've watched them 2 of their first 3 years in the SEC go to Atlanta. I love Gary Pinkel. I don't know if y'all ever have him on your show, but I would love to have Gary Pinkel on this show. Teammate at Kent State with Nick Saban. They played for Don James. Missouri's got a good program. Let's talk about what's going on in practice up there. All the latest news from Mizzou, as only the KTGR, the Tiger, can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, the things are almost squared away. They've almost, I believe tomorrow, if not today, is the final training camp day, if you want to call it, like your preseason camp period, and then your game week starts, which for Mizzou, it starts a little bit earlier since they're going to open on a Thursday next week for their first game against Murray State. So they move everything up a little bit, and so you end camp a little bit earlier. I mean, for the most part, it's looked pretty solid. We got to see a lot of practice the other day when Eli Drinkwitz basically said, hey, you guys can hang out and see the whole practice if you want to today, which was kind of a surprise. And so you got to see a little bit of what the depth chart sort of looks like. I mean, they were dealt a blow last week. Dara Smith, one of their transfers to the defensive side of things, transferred in from Georgia, was supposed to be one of the guys that rotates in as a pass rush, could bring some potential. He blew out his knee the other day, and so he's gone for the season. Unfortunate for him, but, I mean, again, it seems that Mizzou likes their rotation anyway, what they've got brought in. They had at least 3 defensive end transfers alone this offseason, so they clearly addressed it. They knew they needed to have some more depth there after losing Darius Robinson to the first round of the NFL draft this past year. So, I mean, I'll be interested to see who rotates in and out. But I'm not too concerned about what that'll look like compared to what it maybe was going to be anyway. You were hoping that Dara Smith would rotate in, and he had some great, returns in camp with how he looked and how he's been practicing, things like that. There can still be potential from some other guys, though, that can fill his spot and rotate in. So, again, defensive rotations are going to be a huge thing that you'll be looking at for the first few games when they don't have a whole lot of tough opponents to deal with, so they can figure out what their best rotation is come October.
Last year in the preseason, Missouri wasn't picked real high. They finished 8th and got that big Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State, just shut them down. This year, you're going to be the 100. You're going to be one of the – I've got you as my top 4 teams in the SEC, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Missouri. I think Missouri is solid. Let's talk about, you got the death row defense. That's what Eli called it at media days. Lost your coordinator. You got a new guy coming in. But offensively, you're going to be strong enough with Brady. You've got the best quarterback-receiver combo, in my opinion, in the Southeastern Conference. Talk about that, and then go from there to the depth on the offensive line, because Midwestern teams in the Big Ten always have great offensive lines. The SEC, I think we struggle to have the offensive linemen. Missouri, though, always seems to have them.
I mean, they sure seem to develop into solid pros after they come through Mizzou, and yeah, we've seen several guys put together some pretty impressive careers in the NFL after coming through here. I mean, look, I think you're right. As far as the SEC is concerned, I don't think there's a better quarterback wide receiver combo out there. I mean, you can argue individually whether Brady Cook is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. I don't know if he cracks the top 3. You could argue a case for him. I don't think there's any argument about Luther Burden. And when you put the two together, they clearly showed what they could do last year with the chemistry they had, especially with Brady Cook's improvements, which was the main reason why they put together the season they did last year, and the main reason why everyone's picking them so high this year, because not too many people return a quarterback like that this season. So, I mean, he's going to not – the connection between him and Burden will be important, but it's not just that. I mean, it's the fact that almost the entire receiving core is coming back this year, and so you have plenty of ways to build upon that for the passing attack. And I mean, as far as the offensive line, I mean, they lost, Javon Foster and Xavier Delgado this year. Foster was drafted, I believe, in the 4th or 5th round. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, they clearly had some holes to fill on the left side of that offensive line, and they addressed both of them by getting Caden Green from Oklahoma and Marcus Bryant from SMU. So you add to a developing guy, some developing guys on the right side of the line that have really come on strong over the last couple of years, with a proven transfer that's done it at the college level for several years, and Marcus Bryant, and is now moving up a step. And then Caden Green, a guy that was highly touted out of high school in Kansas City. Mizzou was in on him with Oklahoma right at the very end. Oklahoma ends up being the choice, but then he comes and transfers to Mizzou. So, I mean, it seems that, the line this year, it has the pieces for sure to be a really strong unit. I'd be interested to see how they look early on. But I mean, it seems that the competition's been settled at pretty much every single spot. You like to see that at this point in the year. So I expect it to be fairly strong going forward, especially with the coaching staff realizing that, hey, they had a void and they made sure that they filled it and even had some depth on top of it to be able to address.
Yeah, and you look at Luther Burden the third. I think he's out of East St. Louis, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Of his 1,212 yards receiving and like 9-10 touchdowns, over 700 of those were yak. I mean, yards after contact. I asked him this at media days. I said, "Do you take a lot of pride in being the most physical wide receiver in the Southeastern Conference?" And he does. I mean, but he's also a team player. He seems like he'd be a fun teammate. I think takeaway this point is there may be better quarterbacks in this league than Brady Cook, but they're damn sure ain't a better combination than Brady Cook, Luther Burden the third. And it's got to rank as one of the best Missouri's ever had, with guys like Chase Daniel and other ones. So now you look at the schedule for Missouri. Last year, this year, every year is different. People get caught in logo fever. That's just what happens. It's always different when you play those games. What, as a guy that knows the Missouri program inside out, what are you hearing they're most concerned about game-wise? I mean, they've got some – listen, it's the SEC. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run.
No, for sure. I mean, very clearly their hardest games this year. I mean, you could pick out 4 of them that I think will define whether or not they're making the playoff or putting together a successful season like they did last year. And it's at A&M, it's home against Auburn, it's at Alabama, and home against Oklahoma. Like, I mean, the other 8 games on your schedule, you have to just kind of assume that if you're gonna live up to the hype that everyone's giving you, then you got to win those games. Like, it's a given. And then you decide how far you go based on how you do in those 4. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how they navigate through that. Those games are spaced out on the schedule very well for Mizzou. I I keep questioning whether Eli Drinkwitz wrote the schedule himself because it's very, very favorable.
Of course he did. He went to Birmingham.
Right, exactly. I mean, you get a bye week before at A&M and a bye week before the Oklahoma game, and the Alabama game comes before that bye week, and you just the way that it works out. I mean, it's not only that you don't have all that many tough games, but it's the fact that you have time to prepare for those tough games too. And you just have to make sure that you don't stumble along the way. That's going to be the main thing. Because if you do, then it all goes out the window. Any of those other landmines, like if you lose to, I don't know, Boston College or South Carolina, like it's done. You can't have this discussion anymore. It's over. So, I mean, you've got to you have to do well in those games. I think win at least 2 of them. 10-2 is going to put you in the conversation. I keep looking at all of the combinations that it could be, and I'm not really in the camp that 10-2 is a record that you feel excellent about if you're Mizzou getting into the playoff as an at-large. I think you have to be 11-1 in order to really feel good about it and basically seal your spot. It'll depend on where the 2 losses come from, right, and where they are in the schedule. Like, I don't know if because Alabama and Oklahoma are right next to each other on the schedule.
With a bye in between, though.
With a bye in between. But, I mean, if you lose both of them back-to-back, I mean, that's November, and that's when the committee's coming out with their rankings. Like, you have to win when it matters most.
Yeah, you're right.
It seems that the teams that get the wins in November get more deference. And that helped Mizzou last year when they beat Tennessee when they did on the schedule and got a huge bump from it. So I keep thinking that those 2 games carry a little more weight than the other 2, but again, you have to make sure that you split them at the very least, and then maybe the committee will let you in. But I think if you want to feel good about it, I think only 1 loss is going to be affordable for this team going forward.
Well, that's a sign. I love that breakdown that you did, because that's like an engineer would do it. That's where Missouri is. You're thinking, okay, we got 8 games. We know we're going to win. That kind of confidence. Those other 4, I really believe if you split, and let's say you got a win over Alabama or a win over Auburn, and Auburn's not there yet, but Oklahoma, those are sexy names. That's like, I had a date with how many women after Elvis died came out and said they had a date with Elvis? 5 million. Look, Andy, y'all are getting it going at Missouri. I have fun watching this program, and that's what we love doing on this show, is bringing in reporters from all these different schools that cover them on the beat. One last question before we let you go on the Monday morning rush hour football blitz. I asked this to Drinkwitz. Cardinal Nation passion, Mizzou fan passion. Can you marry them together? Is that starting to happen?
I mean, I think at times, I don't know if it's officially happened, but there's very clearly a connection. And I mean, once you have this time of year happen, you're able to not only follow the start of college football season, but I mean, the Cardinals are in the race too, and it's relevant still. They are kind of fading out here recently, so we'll see how much longer that fever lasts. But I mean, there's very clearly that. I don't know if there's anything official that's gone through between the 2 programs, the athletic department and the Cardinals. But I mean, there's Mizzou night at the Cardinal game. There's, sure, maybe at one point there will be vice versa. The Royals also, have plenty of connections to Mizzou too. So I mean, you have both of the markets kind of going back and forth. So I mean, it's an exciting time of year, because it's not only that, but I mean, baseball season heats up with the playoff races, and the Royals are relevant again too in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
So it's even better that way.
Well, ultimate road trip is you stop off in St. Louis, which is just one of the greatest cities in America. Go down to Laclede's Landing, go hang out down there, go to Union Station. I used to work for A.G. Edwards in St. Louis, so spent a lot of time there. And then go over to Mizzou, 107 miles west on I-70. Catch him every day, Andy Humphrey, KTGR Sports in Columbia, Missouri. Knows the Missouri program inside out. Andy, thank you. Let's do it again here very soon. Great information, and we'll be following you. What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's at Andy R. Humphrey, and then our show is at KTGR Big Show. You can follow us there, and tune in for what'll be a highly anticipated season in Columbia.
All right, we'll retweet you. Give us a retweet anytime, and again, have a great day. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Rob.
Oh, you bet. I tell you what, man, Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports. I like that background, red and black. Man, talking with a lot of Georgia friends over the weekend, and one of them, Jeff Boone, he grew up in Athens. His brother owned a bar over there. What a wild life, man. He is a dog's dog, and he's all worried about – I go, Jeff, have confidence, man. You haven't lost a regular season game in 3 years, but at the same time, Kirby Smart this summer, I heard him say it at media days, got his team hooked up with the Nike leadership program where you find out everything about every teammate, first name, middle name, last name, hometown, college major, passions, interest, and everything. He goes, you better damn well know what that guy on your left or right stands for. As long as you got a coach that's that hungry, I think this machine keeps on rolling. Am I right, wrong, or insane?
No, I think you're right. And I think the biggest thing with Kirby, and I think they figured this out in the last 3 or 4 years, I think it took a while. It's sort of what you're talking about, Rob, figuring out the importance of knowing why the guy beside you is doing what he's doing. I mean, they talk a lot about knowing your why. And they have meetings in the offseason. They call them skull sessions. And a big part of it is just the players getting to know each other better and understanding, what it is that motivates them, why they're at Georgia, what they want to get out of being at Georgia. And, I think that it's helped. You think about being in the fourth quarter, being with your back against the wall and needing to make a play. And, you know what the guy beside you is fighting for and what motivates them and why they wanted to be at Georgia in the first place.
Yeah.
I think it took Kirby a while to really understand the value of that buy-in between the players and not only, trying to get the best players and trying to help them develop, which they had really done even before they had hit this point in the program, but trying to get everybody to really buy into the collective, mantras and the collective goals of the team. And I think, getting everybody on the same page and getting to know each other better and being on the same page as teammates. I think that, stumbling on that and figuring out how to do that, I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments Kirby's made while he's been at Georgia.
But, I was just going to say, Rob, it's like I always throw out the Phil Jackson, right? Phil Jackson was so great, it's like having a lot of talent at one time. It's kind of Kirby's that times and personnel, right? That takes a different type of psychology. The great ones have a psychology, so like they all should be psychology majors. I think Urban Meyer was a psych major, but these sort of the great ones know how to motivate without screaming and yelling. Kirby kind of does a little bit of both, but in your opinion, I know it's a broad opinion, but how does he sort of motivate? You've been around him. I know what it's like to cover the beat. And, you get into these press cards. You kind of get to know him a little bit. Do you feel like you got a good sense of how he motivates?
Well, I think that he is flexible with the different guys. I think he understands. And you hear this even from older players, and I think this just shows that it comes from the top down, that different guys, you have to push buttons different ways. You can get after some guys, and some guys you kind of have to, prop up and help them when they make a mistake. And I think Kirby's probably gotten better at that too. I think that in time he's learned not only how to delegate within his staff, but just, to relate to the players. And I think the biggest thing that has helped Kirby is the fact that he played at Georgia. You know what I mean? They talk about, we're not ever going to ask you to do anything that we didn't do, and it's not only Kirby, Mike Bobo. I know Will Muschamp's not the co-defensive coordinator anymore, but he's still around, and even before Brian McClendon, who's not there anymore, he was a receiver at Georgia. I mean, they've got guys that have been through it and understand what they're signing up for. And, something to me too, Brenden, that you were talking about right there that really honestly amazes me every portal cycle. I'll have a list of guys, and it's not so much, intel that these guys are leaving, but you just sort of look at the depth chart and you say, okay, it makes sense if this guy leaves. And it's usually about a quarter of what you would think would leave. I mean, they get real buy-in from these guys, even the guys that don't play very much. And something that we've heard Kirby talk about, I think about Julian Humphrey, who's one of the cornerbacks trying to win a starting job this offseason. He told us in the spring that basically the coaches said, look, you're better off being a 2 here than transferring and being a 1 somewhere else because you're still going to get developed. You're going to practice against some of the best receivers every single day, and guys buy into that. And I give Kirby and that whole staff a lot of credit because I can't blame any of these kids, especially backups, to go, look, I'm not playing. I may not play next year. I'm going to leave. They do a very good job of getting those guys to buy in, to stick around, and time again, it's really paid off both for the players and for the team.
Jordan, how much impact, we've talked about this all year, is Trevor Etienne going to have? I know it's like my Etienne report every time you come on, but has he broken a leg or something yet? I mean, the Gator bit his foot off or something.
No, but he'll be the lead back. And
really, he's going to be number one.
Surprised that he was voted. He was one of the top preseason All SEC running back selections. I think I had him as like my 4th selection just because we still don't really know what he's going to do. We haven't seen him at Georgia, but there's a lot of excitement about really not just him. He'll be the lead back. I expect him to have a chance to break out, behind what I think is one of the best offensive lines in the country. But people are really excited about this run game. That they've got a freshman, Nate Frazier, who people were excited about before he got here. He arrived in the summer, and he has probably been the talk of fall camp. I mean, he's been really, really impressive. Had about a 40-yard touchdown, I was told, in Georgia's last scrimmage on Saturday. Wow. So it's really not just Trevor, who, again, I think he'll be the lead back, but they've got Nate Frazier. Branson Robinson, a guy that's come back from injury that I think is well ahead of where most people expected him to be at this point. He got hurt last August, and he's been looking really good. So people are excited about this run game. I feel like
they should
a few
be.
Years. Say what now?
They should. I mean, they should be. Look, Etienne is a special back. I mean, what he did at Florida with no offensive line, and the way that he hit holes, the explosiveness, his speed. Like I mean, like as a football fan, I'm actually excited to see like what he can do against everybody against Florida. But I mean, I think he's going to be special, and especially if he doesn't have to carry the load.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing, and I do think that they feel pretty good about where they are behind him. Now, one of the guys that I would say is probably their next backup, Roderick Robinson, he's been dealing with a toe injury.
Yeah.
And it's sort of been all over the place on just how severe it is. We might get a better idea of that. We're going to talk to Kirby on Tuesday. So if he's not available early, that is going to be pretty significant, but that probably just opens up a door for Nate Frazier. And he's wearing number 3. I don't know if y'all remember Todd Gurley wearing that number 3, but Georgia would love if he would play that position like Todd Gurley.
Was that the only injury bug? Was there any other major injury?
Bigger, really, other than that, defensive line's a little banged up. Jordan Hall's a guy that from Jacksonville, actually, that's been beat up, had an injury on one leg to start fall camp, and then kind of rehabbing it. Got the same injury in the other leg. So I don't think he's going to be back for the Clemson game, but I don't think it's going to be something that lingers well into the season. And then another guy, Warren Brinson, another defensive tackle, started 3 games last year. He's been a little banged up. I don't think that's serious. I think they're just trying to be smart about it. But knock on wood for Georgia's sake, they've done a pretty good job of avoiding like a long-term injury. They've come out of fall camp to this point pretty healthy. And I know that they want those guys healed up, some of the getting beat black and blue from some of these practices. But other than that, they've been pretty healthy to this point.
One of the things along the line of what Brendan's line of questions point toward is Dabo versus Kirby Smart. Dabo's pretty organic. He likes the high school. He's not big into the portal and all that stuff. Kirby gets guys, and I like what you said because I see it in the business world outside of this. Is you got to get, hey, look, man, you're not going to be the top salesman on the floor the first year or two unless, somebody just delivers something in your lap. Then that doesn't happen very often. I like Carson Beck, ESPN, and they see it. Here's a guy that I'll just keep plugging and plugging and plugging. And I think the takeaway from what you've said so far is They tell you you're better off staying here as a 2 and being developed. That's the brilliance of that staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think they deserve a lot of credit, especially Carson specifically. Could anybody have blamed him had he transferred? I mean, he watched a walk-on beat him out, and take over, and then Stetson decides he's coming back for another year. And I give Carson a lot of credit because he could have – not only could he have left, but, guys, we see these quarterbacks in the offseason – there's some pretty big opportunities. It's not like Carson would have left and, he's got to go to a Sunbelt school. There's no other. He could have transferred and played somewhere else and had real opportunities, but he really liked being at Georgia. He's talked about this. He really liked the development he was getting, and I know that it was hard on him, and I'm looking forward to the Friday before the Clemson game writing a big story on him. But, he talked about in 2021 – when JT Daniels was the starter, he gets hurt. Carson thought, all right, this is my chance. I'm going to get the start. And he said, I didn't take that week, seriously. I didn't prepare like I should. And Stetson Bennett plays instead. And we know the story from there. But, yeah, Carson deserves a lot of credit for sticking around when it would have been totally understandable for him to leave. And it's paid off for him to the fact that, we're going into this season and people see him as one of the Heisman favorites. And there's talk about him maybe being the number 1 pick next year. Now, maybe that would have played out had he transferred, but I think he's been better off for what he decided to do to stick around. And I know for sure Georgia's better off because I'm not sure what they'd be looking at if they were with a different quarterback going into this year.
Saturday, obviously, you just alluded to Georgia takes on Clemson. What are you going to break? You got any pre-game?
Week from Saturday.
Week for Saturday. Sorry. Listen, I don't have a roof in my master bedroom, Rob. Thank you.
I know.
That's a little scared. I'm a little scared that they're still going to come one through the ceiling.
He gets hit by a storm down there. It's like Tornado Alley in Kansas. It's brutal.
The tree came in on my master bedroom. It came through the roof. Week from Saturday, 31st of August. Georgia, Clemson. I know we'll probably talk to you next week, but what is the early take on it? That's a big game to me. That's like, that's a huge, season setter, right? And you go in to take on Clemson's never easy. What is your take on the first game and how important is that for Georgia to set the pace?
Well, it'll be interesting because I've talked about this a little bit, that I kind of feel like all the pressure's on Clemson, which obviously Georgia knows Clemson's going to be dangerous. But to me, it's sort of what I talked about a few minutes ago with the defensive line. I just want to see how Georgia's defensive line plays because I think that is the biggest question mark with this team. Cade Klubnik, I think, is a really good quarterback. They can't afford to let him get a lot of opportunity. And, I want to see that pass rush specifically. Christian Miller's a guy we've heard a lot about in fall camp. They really need him to take a step forward. And then Michael Williams, being on the defensive end, maybe standing up as an edge rusher, how exactly are they going to utilize him? So I think it's going to be a fun game. I think, again, Clemson, I think, has something to prove in this game. And I think Georgia understands that. And I think Georgia does benefit. They love having a marquee season opener because as much as Kirby doesn't want to talk about it with us, I guarantee you he keeps reminding his players, we got a big game. You guys got to get ready because if y'all aren't ready, Clemson is going to make for a really tough afternoon down in Mercedes-Benz.
And I like that. I mean, you saw what happened when you beat Oregon 49-3. Georgia ended up winning the national championship, and Oregon won 10 or 11 games. And Bo Nix, he sees red and black, and he just goes, it's just tough for him. But he ended up doing well, but, of course, couldn't beat Washington either. I always look at how do you do against the standard. All right. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Tell people how they can follow you and what you're writing about right now, because you put out content, and you're also very active on Twitter, and we'll retweet your stuff. You'll retweet our stuff. We really appreciate it. But like I say, I really love having you on because you know what you're talking about, and you bring a lot of value. Listeners and viewers love you.
Appreciate that. Dogs247.com on Twitter, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter, at Dogs247. Yeah, Georgia's essentially through fall camp now. They had their second scrimmage. I think the prep's going to start on Clemson. So we'll get a chance to talk to Kirby and a couple players on Tuesday. So there will be good stuff out of that. And kind of wrapping up fall camp. And as we were kind of doing with Brenden, they're starting to preview Clemson, get to know this Clemson team a little bit better. And I'm just excited, guys. There's football on Saturday. Maybe the best part is I don't got to work. I get to watch some football on Saturday, so super excited for that.
Brenden, hey, look, Jordan, if anybody's keeping track, 288 hours away. But I'm just saying if you're keeping track.
We're not keeping
track. Hey, all right. Have a great
Jordan.
week, man.
See you guys.
All right, Jordan. You bet. Hey, let me
now we got to bring in my guy. This is my guy.
Look, real quick. Now, I was out at Hewlett and Dunn Saturday afternoon. Audrey got a couple of pairs of boots. I got some stuff. Man, they're getting all the fall stuff in. Marshwear, badass. I sent you some pictures, Brenden, if we can show them today, tomorrow, whenever. But Marshwear, it's a new brand they have at Hewlett and Dunn. And they also got a lot of the duck camp shirts, a select group of them, the shackets, the long sleeve, good looking shirts on the 50% off rack, hewlettanddunn.com. Coolmore Logistics, folks. Look, you got to ship something across the country. Doesn't matter where it is, from Savannah to Seattle. You just call Coolmore Logistics and Trucking. Look on there. Hit that app. Okay, hit the QR code. They can ship it anywhere. They put the word out. Something's got to be moved, and truckers see that. They light up their phones.
Like that, true.
I go in their office. I see on the computers. It looks like a trading floor. I'm up there with Bill Ackman's hedge fund at Green Square or something. And also, folks, the great people at Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas. You got a hunting dog, you want to get trained, you're looking to buy a puppy from the best breeding out there. Chris Aiken, I've known him for 29 years, one of the best people. He's got a great staff up there, Web-Footed Kennels. Find him on Facebook, WEBB Footed Kennels. And now we got one of the best guys out there, Ben Troupe. Look at the hat from Hewlett and Dunn. Now look, a hat and a hat and a hat. That is a good-looking lid right there. Ben always does.
I'm pretty good looking. That's probably.
I was about to say, Brendan's lid is nice, man. And the fact that's been sitting back there behind Brendan the whole time, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I know you are, because I put it on because you're the hat guy. So now mess with my 10-gallon hat.
Smoke. That's right. I know we're gonna have a showdown. All right, Ben. Look, man, it's Rapid Fire Monday. We're getting into the season. We're just going bam, bam, bam. Let's talk about the Gators. Last week, I was on Buddy's show Tuesday and Wednesday. Loved being on there with him. They asked us to pick the Gators. And I had their losses as at Tennessee. Again, I think they're going to lose to Georgia. They're going to lose to LSU. And they're going to lose to Ole Miss. I'm picking Florida to win at Austin. I think that's going to happen November 9th. So I got the Gators going 8-4. I've always felt 7-5, 8-4. Let's talk about the Gators. As only you can tell us.
Yeah, I like the 7-5, 8-4. I think when you look at this schedule, top to bottom, Florida plays everybody in the state of Florida, not except FAU, FIU, and USF. They got UCF, they got Miami, they got Florida State. You talk about going up to Austin. You talk about Ole Miss coming to town. Yeah. It's gonna be a gauntlet after the first 6 weeks of the season, starting with Miami. Florida can get out to a fast start, 5-1, 4-2. Because they're going to have to win a couple of games down the stretch. Nobody says they're going to win. And against Georgia, it's how you look against Georgia. Yes, if the biased Florida Gator fan of me wishes they could go out there and, beat Georgia. I just think Georgia's on another level right now. But Billy Napier knows I got one thing that a lot of people need to be successful. I got a good quarterback. I mean, people don't talk about how good of a quarterback Graham Mercer is. 20 touchdowns, 3 picks last year.
I think quarterbacks.
Well, you got two, but we gonna look the way the future is in the building. We hope that we don't see him till 2025.
Well, we're gonna see him.
He's gonna see him.
Oh, he better come out because that's a big question. What's going on with the offensive line, Troupe?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing about that. But here's the thing about that, though, Brenden. I think what happens when you talk about the offensive line is when you've had the offensive line Florida has had the last couple of years, people are looking for them to make mistakes. It's like if all I've shown you is, or if all you look for me is the mistakes I make, you look past everything else I do. Well, when you look at this offensive line now, I mean, you get you get George coming over from Alabama. You got Slaughter at center. You know, I mean, you got Austin Barber, you know, at left tackle. I think you're going to have a much better offensive line. The health of Montreal Johnson is going to have a lot to do with the running game, even though I think we stacked there. Graham Mertz gave you 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, and all he had last year was, quote, Ricky Pearsall. Well, this year, he's added some weapons. And our defensive line, even though we got to replace the defensive tackle, is loaded. And we got safeties. We got a safety in Asa, who's not going to get the ball thrown over his head. Like, I think Asa is not the most talented safety you ever seen, but he is the smartest because he's going to get guys lined up. I know, you know, it's all speculation right now because we haven't played anybody, but 7 wins, 8 wins with this schedule, Brenden and Rob. That's
massive. You win, you go 7, and come on. I mean, to me, that's like you won the damn Super Bowl.
I looked at the last
for Florida. You won the Super Bowl. Hold on, I wanted to say, Rob, real quick. I don't interrupt you, but I just want to say, you know, what do you do, Ben? What do you do, Rob? What do you do, Ben? Smoke. If you Graham Mertz comes out and he's not, you know, because you know maybe he's getting pushed because you know that Billy did say we want Graham Mertz to play a little more risky, right? He kind of so he's going to want him to push it a little bit where he was real comfortable not throwing picks and not making mistakes. If there's a knock on Graham Mertz, he holds the ball a little bit longer than he should. You know, that's sort of been the knock on him. What happens if you throw and he's not playing, you know, as well as you hope, and you bring in a Lagway who all of a sudden that's a whole different, you know, offensive scheme because you got to respect him, you know, on the run. Does that play a little bit more with the read option? You know, those kind of things with a guy like the legs like him, with an offensive line that's not as big or not, you know, it's not going to hold blocks as long. And maybe they struggle a little bit, but you got a guy who's going to make some plays. What do you do then?
I think you have to wait it out. You have to be patient. That's the thing about the quarterback position, and no other position had. You got to wait it out. Derek Lagway, we looking at what he's done based on what he's done against people he's better than. He's not better than people he's out there in college with. He's not better than them. And the difference is this. RG3 when he came out, I think he ran like a 4.344. You know who caught him in the NFL? Haloti Ngata, a guy that weighed 350. That's who caught him. So in the SEC, I'm looking forward to DJ Lagway. Every time you pull the ball down, you make yourself susceptible to get hurt. Ask Cam Newton. Yeah. So dual threat quarterbacks are great to have, but they can't take big hits. If you look at
they can't.
And the thing about DJ Lagway, you think 240 pounds matter when you getting hit by 240?
Look at AR.
And
AR's the same thing. I mean, he's so
the thing about Graham Mertz is this though. Think about this for a second. When is 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 3 picks a bad year? That's a great year. Most quarterbacks would love. That's what Graham Mertz did last year.
How much of it was junk point? I mean, that's what I want to know. How much of it was, you know, in the game?
Well, the thing about but you got to look at it though. I mean, Brenden, context matters, right? So if I'm in my first year in the system, let's go back to 2023. What was we waiting on? Graham Mertz is too big for him. He's not going to be able to play in the SEC. It's going to be overwhelming. We waited the whole year for Graham Mertz to be bad, and he wasn't. We waited on him to look average, and he didn't. That's what the offensive line that he got sacked 30 times, and he still did 2,900 yards, 20-3. You keep him upright. You let him utilize those weapons with the run game. He's going to be better this year because, like I said, I remember when 2,900 yards and 20 touchdowns was a hell of a year. Now that's average because we wanted to do 40 touchdown passes, but with the emergence of the run game, a retooled offensive line, a second year in the system with Graham, the greatest decision in 2024 offseason was Graham Mertz deciding to come back. I love DJ Lagway because he's going to be the future, but the only reason why Tim Tebow was successful at Florida is because he did not have to start as a freshman. He got the weight behind Chris Lee. You don't want to. I need him to be confident when he becomes a starter. I don't want to strip him of his confidence and beat him up before he gets to play. DJ's going to play, but we don't need him playing. If the game is out of reach, just let Graham Mertz stay in there. Don't put DJ in because you know this, Brenden. Anything DJ does, we gonna go crazy over. It could be a 10-yard hit. You go, oh my God. No, DJ, you Gatorade National Player of the Year come out of high school in the great state of Texas where they just breed quarterbacks. We need Graham Mertz to be healthy for all the games, and we need the defense to get lined up, execute, and play complimentary D. I think Florida got good as a shot as any. Don't mean they're gonna beat Georgia. Don't mean they're gonna beat Ole Miss. Don't mean they're gonna beat LSU. But we should find, Tennessee got a quarterback with a funny last name. They heard the kid is really, really good.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but I think Florida, because they got Graham Mercer, is why they're going to be good. If they didn't have him, if DJ Lagway is a starter, it's going to be a long year because freshman growing pains happens for everybody.
Do you think he's even going to? Isn't it? Was it Clay Millen, right? The CSU guy. He's pretty. Yeah. I haven't heard much about him. I know he's good though. I know he's got snaps. You'd almost put him in as a backup or as a number 2 guy.
Well, yeah, because there's no hurry. It's like this. There's no hurry. If I got horses, and Brenden, we got a thoroughbred that's ready for the Kentucky Derby in a couple of years. We don't throw him out there right now because he can run. I want to get him ready. When I show him to you, I'm not putting him back in the stable. You can't do that with DJ. If you put him out there, that's it. You can't say, "Hey, DJ, we appreciate what you did." 19-year-olds don't understand, not being ready. He knows when I put him out there, hopefully 2025, you'll get to see it.
But he's got to have a good experience if he's going to get
I think he will. I think Billy Napier doesn't get enough credit for how well he grooms these quarterbacks. I mean, he kind of knows what he's doing. I mean, under his belt right now, he's had, Anthony Richardson, we remember him. Now you got Graham Mertz. We see what's happening with him. He's got a pretty good lineage of quarterbacks right now. We'll see what happens.
What do you make about the AR comments about the program that he made recently? He came out talking smack. That's it's sort of low rent, no, or just sort of, what do you think there?
I didn't necessarily agree with what AR said because I think the thing about AR that he doesn't appreciate is they sheltered AR a lot. When I say that, I mean they featured him. That wasn't a real offense that he ran. They're letting him utilize his athletic ability, and at the end of the day, you became the 4th overall pick. It's half who you are and what you do. It's half where you at. If he ain't at Florida, you think he goes 4th overall? He's at UCF. You think he goes 4th overall if he's at Florida State? I don't think so. So for me, listen, he's a grown man. I respect AR and what he did when he was at Florida. But let's face it, when's the last time a player doesn't, wins 6-7 games and goes 4th overall? That doesn't happen. So that's the resume booster at Florida. That's why Graham Mercer is saying if AR-15 had 20 touchdowns, 3 picks, and 2,900 yards, he might go number 1 overall. If he got that type of stat line, right? So say what you listen. He can say it, but no matter what, AR knows this. He could have picked anywhere to go in the country. He stayed right at home, and it served him well. Hopefully he stays healthy because I want to see him, a full healthy AR with them Colts, even though I don't want him to beat my Titans, even though they probably will.
Well, you look at the fan mentality of people. Fans don't have the authority to fire coaches, but man, they love to feel powerful by saying, if Billy Napier doesn't start off strong, he's gone. Bull spit. He ain't going anywhere. And that's the stupidest thing, but people, like you said, you were waiting for last year for something to go wrong at Florida. It's called waiting for the other shoe to drop. These people, they wake up in the morning, junk in, junk out. You got to be positive in, positive out. And I'm looking at any team. I like what you said too about DJ Lagway. Yeah, he kicked ass in high school. And I like Michael Burton's comment. Ben, you have a different perspective on the offensive line because, Michael's right. Tight end's a hybrid. You still got to block. Some of the best tight ends I've ever seen had 25 catches in their career in college, but they could hold off on the edge. I remember some great matchups in college in run-oriented, wishbone-oriented teams. The tight end, 7-8 catches a year, but they counted, but they made those edge blocks and sealed off the edges on the end. Let's talk about that combo. I like it. Chris Leak out of Independence High School in Charlotte. When he was the man, and this is right after you had left Florida, Ben, what do you think it was like? Do you know Chris Leak?
Yeah. Chris Leak was my senior year, was his freshman year. So I got a chance to play with him my senior year. And what I liked the most about Chris Leak was he would not let people make excuses for him. Like if he didn't play well, he'll take accountability for it. If he did play well, he wanted no credit for it. And I think the thing about Chris Leak got recruited by Ron Zook. He won his national championship with Urban Meyer. So he got groomed. He kind of went. His first start in college was at LSU at LSU. That was his on the road. That's his first start, and he won. LSU.
I remember it.
LSU lost one game in 2003. That was against us with an 18-year-old quarterback by the name of Chris Leak. So it's not like the guy was groomed, for greatness coming out of Independence High School in Charlotte. My son, who lives in Charlotte, be like, "Hey, Daddy, man. I mean, what about this Chris Leak guy? That we don't have those type of aspirations, son. Leave that alone." Because I'm realistic with my child. Yeah, my child plays the quarterback position, but I told him, I said, "What is your name?" Benjamin. What's your last name? Troupe. Not Chris or Leak. Leave that alone. Because trying to chase that type of greatness, you're gonna be putting yourself behind the 8 ball. No, certain guys are. Listen, once again, I'm gonna say this: if Tim Tebow is a freshman when I'm a senior, and Chris Leak is coming out of high school as a 5-star, I don't know if Tim Tebow could have done for Chris what Chris did for Tim. It's a total. You need certain. Every great player has one thing in common. They had a mentor. You can go back as far as, and so the reason why Steve Smith Sr. was good with Carolina, he had Musa Muhammad. The reason why Steve Young was good, he had Joe Montana. Like, if I can see the guy in front of me, okay, I know how to do it now. I know how to go about it now. That's why DJ has Graham. It ain't no contract controversy. You tell DJ, you're going to play DJ, but this is how you play. Only difference is when DJ gets in, they're going to let him run a little more until, Brenden, he gets knocked the hell out, and they ain't going to run it no more. Because I need him to be healthy. Because the thing about the SEC or big-time football is, it's not a matter of if, it's when. When you get hit, not if. You're going to get hit. That's what's scary with a quarterback because they only get hit once a week. On Saturdays, they don't get hit during the week. They got to stand there in the pocket with a 300-pounder barreling down on them soon they make the throw. So
ask Graham Mertz about getting.
Graham Mertz.
That guy took some shots.
Graham. Think about this. What do Graham Mertz got to do with 4th and a mile against Mizzou? That had nothing to do with him. And they got the first down.
No.
See what I'm saying? And all his interceptions was like tip passes. He never just threw it to the other team.
But I think Napier's right. I think he's got to stop playing too safe if you're gonna win ball games. He's got to open it up. Yeah,
he's gained the confidence this year. Look, if I work for Rob Browne and Investments LLC, and I'm a new accountant or whatever I'm doing, I'm not gonna take risks when I first get the job because I got to impress my boss. Once my boss see, he know what he's doing. Hey man, let's be a little more aggressive year 2 because you've earned my trust year 1. I think that's what Graham did in 2020.
Well, and you know what, Ben, that's a great analogy, and I'm gonna paint a picture. When Brenden and I were at Media Days in Dallas, we were in the side room, the smaller room after the big stage, and I was asking questions to Graham Mertz. Number one, he comes off, he's got a presence about him. He's 6'3", he's a big guy, but he talked about 2 things. He said, when I first got here, I got a text from a thing, and it said, "Hey man, best of luck. I'm here to help. Let me know what I can do. DW." And he's like, DW. And someone said, Danny Warfel. He goes, "Oh, yeah." So he goes, "I hear he's coming to Dallas today. And if I run into him, I'm going to give him a big hug and say, thank you for everything you do for me." I kid you not. As soon as it got through, I walked out in the hall, and there's Danny Warfel standing there and Graham Mertz. I took a picture of the two of them side by side, identical height and weight. That says a lot about Danny Warfel. He would do that. And I like what you say, Ben, and Brendan's been right too. Chris Leak, what he did for Tim Tebow is so unappreciated. And Tim Tebow appreciated it. And this is the thing. Yeah, you get somebody brand new in a meeting on a big investment opportunity, looking at buying a business or something like that. Basically, what you're going to do is, my dad would always tell me, "Boy, I know you like to talk, but don't say a word. Just listen. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth." I love that, Ben. That is so accurate. And as much as we hear DJ Lagway's Superman, like, what do you call the SEC? I love your quote. Said the SEC, it's physical, Rob, But the NFL, it's a collision league. That's why those guys are all hugging each other after games and loving each other because I made it. I can walk. I love that. That's true.
It's always gonna be the one thing I had to learn about it. But I'm on I'm up early this morning, man. I'm up with Lauren Meadows. He filling in for Shane Matthews, and somebody he's on Shane. He said he called me last night. He said, Ben, man, you gonna get on the show with me? I said, what time is it? He said 8:00. I said a.m. He was like, yeah. But then somebody tried me and Lauren. Somebody said, would I fill in for the Buddy Martin segment? They said, can Ben fill in for? So Lauren, I was gonna say something. Lauren said something, and it's what Lauren said. Y'all have no clue what the contribution that Buddy Martin has made, continues to make for sports media. You don't understand it. And he said I wouldn't be here, which I wouldn't. Lauren said I wouldn't be here, and I think that's the thing, right? People just look at where you at. They think that I just arrived here. I'm like, no, man. I mean, people say DeAndre Hopkins is a great receiver. You know who his mentor was? Andre Johnson. That's who his mentor was. You see how good he is, right? When people say, hey, man, how does a player become a great player? Well, you got a great player in front of you. But if I got a great player or a great man in front of me that I admire and I want to emulate, I had 4 years with the Tennessee Titans, not because I was a great player. I had Aaron Kinney, a tight end from Florida that got drafted same round as me. Yeah. He took me on his wing. Sports media, sports, business, it's the same way. If I'm willing, and I do not use that term loosely, if I'm willing to learn behind somebody, listen, I either got I had a mother on Twitter ask me, hey Ben, she said, I got an 11-year-old son. He's a tight end. What type of advice would I give him? I told her, tell him to be the best teammate he could be. Learn how to be the glue of the team. The glue has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with presence. If he can make his presence better than his talent, because you might not get a chance to show your talent. Mm-hmm. You might just be, a guy that's help people team. Because most of the time, everybody want to be the star. I get it. And for people that saying, well, Ben, it's easy for you to say that. I started 1 year in high school. I started 1 year in college.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say it took me 3 years in high school to get it, it took me 3 years in college to get it, but once I got it, because by the time I became a senior, I didn't care nothing about individual stats. I wanted to play.
Yeah, and your moments of stardom are so rare. I read this. I've got this book called Leadership Lessons of the Navy SEALs. It's two brothers. One was a Fortune 500 CEO that would turn around companies that were in the tank. The other one was a 22-year member of the SEAL teams. Said the number one reason SEALs get out is nothing's going on, nothing to do. They just bored out of their minds. Nothing ever happens. And you've got to learn like you did. You keep working and working and working. I tell every intern we've ever had, my kids, I tell anyone about it. When you get to work in the morning, get there early and say, what can I do to help? And that's called being a great teammate, Ben. I mean, like you said, but look what it did for your career and for your life. And you got great things happening in your personal life. We're happy for you. You find excuses to win. That's what
you got hitched, right?
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Who the hell's gonna marry you? Who in the hell is gonna marry you?
That's what
I've
been doing all summer. That's what all summer I have been playing. Listen,
you have outkicked your coverage.
Here's the thing. When I tell you I outkicked it, man, I Sebastian Janikowski this thing. This thing is crazy. But the thing is too, like, it's funny now being in sports media, right? My wife, she knows what I do, but she don't know. She like, yeah, he talks about sports.
No. She don't care.
Listen.
Let's get that right. She don't know, and she don't give a shit. She don't want to know.
Really don't. Listen, I'm sandwiched in between two Cheryls, Brenden. My mom name is Cheryl, and my wife name is Cheryl. It's spelled the exact same. And the thing, and what my mom does for my dad is what my wife does for me. My mom and my wife, they are money magicians. We give them money, and poof, it disappears. It's gone. So it's like. But for me though, I appreciate being a part of. Like, when people tell me what do I miss the most about football, I say none. I don't miss none of it. And not because I don't miss the players or the coaches or the moments. This sports media life for me has taken on a life of itself because I can have fun, man. I get Rob, I get Buddy, I get Lauren, I get friends. I get to talk trash on these.
Me.
And guess what?
Yeah.
I'm like your brother. I don't
Listen,
understand.
you are my super duper tan light skinned brother.
I know. You're white chocolate.
And look,
listen, I've already told the guy in the bar in Savannah. I said, listen, I'm sitting there talking about Buddy Martin. He said, you know Buddy Martin? I said, my grandfather, Buddy Martin. He go, that's your grandfather? I said, what are you trying to say? 2024, he was like, what are you trying to say? And he was like, oh, I see the resemblance. You better act like you know. You better act like you know.
You better act like you know.
Hey, I tell you what we're doing today. We got to wrap it up, Ben. But listen, Buddy and Kirk McNair, legendary journalist, the oldest living journalist in Alabama, Bama 247. He's the one who started these magazines, Bama Magazine, inside the Auburn Tigers. He worked with the Florida people. In about 20 minutes, Kirk McNair, Buddy Martin, and I are going to do an SECU podcast, which we're going to release here very soon, about the great sports writers who have over the years told these stories which make us love the game so much. And it's the people like you, Ben. I promise you that. God bless you and your marriage. I'm really, really happy for. Buddy called me last night. Hey, guess what? I'm writing a column now, 700 words every week. It's got to be turned in Thursday night. You know who's critiquing it? Buddy Martin, my journalism professor, who bears, by the way, a striking resemblance to my typing teacher at Christian Brothers High School, Brother John Michael. He'd say, don't look at the keys, you jackass. Next time you look at the keys, he'd say, don't look at the keys, you boob. The third time, he'd pick you up by your hair, and you'd be typing with your nose. Buddy Martin is my journalism teacher now. How lucky am I? Ben, 84 reasons. Tell them about that. We'll wrap it up. And everybody, God bless America. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Be thankful we got great people like Brenden and Ben, Andy Humphrey, Jordan Hill, Jacob Goins, all of our guests, viewers, and sponsors. Say goodbye, team.
Listen, 84 Reasons podcast. I mean, we try to talk to the current Gators, former Gators, future Gators. 2 new podcasts to be looking out for. No weddings in the fall. We're going to be talking all things college athletics. It's called No Weddings in the Fall. I got married in the summer, so I'm living up to it. And in the Ben True podcast, where I get to talk a little life with people like Rob, with people like Brenden. We just talking non-sports. I'm talking to Rob Browne about life. It might last 2 hours, but we're going to get it in, baby.
That's right.
Okay. I'm going to start an online dating helpline. I am.
Brenden, hang on.
Brenden,
I guess we're just going to keep the channel open because we got about 15. We close out and we come back.
No. I'm the producer. So
okay.
This is the EP. You're the host. Okay.
Tell me what to do.
And he's smoke.
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
We'll finish out here, Rob. I'll send everyone a new link, and we'll talk about that later. So
okay.
All right. We'll check you tomorrow, same time, same bat station, right, Rob?
That's right. Support our sponsors, and God bless all of our viewers. Appreciate you.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.